So the NBA draft has concluded. A draft that maybe didn't have as much spice as years past, it was still a very interesting one with a lot of teams making some very interesting picks. Players have already begun their introductions on their respective teams, and the focus has now shifted to free agency. For a lot of NBA teams, they made a lot of right decisions, getting very talented players that fit the needs of some of these teams and fit these respective teams' timelines. And for other teams, the NBA draft wasn't so pretty. There are some teams out there that made a lot of questionable moves and leave their fans with a lot of questions for the future. Today, I want to talk about those teams. I want to look at the NBA draft winners, I want to look at the NBA draft losers, and ultimately give my opinion on each. Like I said, a lot of teams made a lot of great decisions, but this first team that I want to talk about had probably the best draft of them all. The Utah Jazz went into the 2023 NBA draft and just demolished it. With their first selection, the 9th overall pick, they took Taylor Hendricks, which was an incredible pick. A very versatile wing, Taylor Hendricks fits exactly what the Utah Jazz need. Plopping in that power forward position, he brings added versatility, increased defense, and still spaces the floor. You have the spacing, the scoring, the explosiveness of Lauri Markkanen, the defense, versatility, and shooting of Taylor Hendricks, and you got the interior presence of Walker Kessler. Hendricks fixes so many things that went wrong for the Utah Jazz this past season, and now the focus can shift for them on retooling that backcourt. And talking about retooling that backcourt, they made some progressions in that in this year's NBA draft. With the 16th overall pick, they took Keontae George. For much of the season, Keontae George was a consensus top 10 pick, but obviously fell out of the draft due to poor college play. But there's a lot of promise from this young guard. At 6'4", he has the ability to play both the point guard and shooting guard positions, and has a great looking three-point shot. And all in all, in the right system, I truly believe he's going to flourish. With their last pick in the first round, they took Bryce Sensabaugh out of Ohio State. This is a great pick. Sensabaugh is someone who has a high floor, but also a high ceiling. You pair that up with Ochai Agbaji and Colin Sexton, where they have Taylor Horn-Tucker. They have some movable assets like Kelly Olynyk and Jordan Clarkson if they want to move them via sign and trade. And the plethora of picks they have for the future, that Utah Jazz team is looking extremely bright. And I cannot wait to see what they do over the next couple of years. My next winner for this draft is obviously the Houston Rockets. With the 4th overall pick, they took Amen Thompson, the obvious pick, the 6'7" guard out of OTE. He's gonna add so much to that team. The rim pressure he displays, the playmaking, the versatility, the defense. Now, of course, there's question marks around his shooting, but the Houston Rockets have one of the best shooting coaches in the NBA. They were able to turn Kevin Porter Jr. into a great shooter, and I'm confident they can do the same with Amen. And with the 20th overall pick, they were able to get the best value pick of the entire draft. Cam Whitmore, up until the last week or so, was a consensus top 5 to 7 player out of Villanova. He's extremely athletic, has shown the ability to shoot the 3-ball at a decent clip, has great on-ball potential, and incredible size for a wing. But because of some injury concerns and some character issues, he fell in this year's NBA draft. Report came out that the Houston Rockets tried to trade up for him, but he fell right into their lap at the 20th overall pick. And with these selections, there's so much more that you can do with your roster now. Amen could push KPJ out, and you could get assets back for him. The drafting of Cam Whitmore makes guys like Kenyon Martin Jr. and Jayshawn Tate expendable. They have so much money for this year's free agency that they can go after a plethora of different free agent veterans. And Ime Udoka is going to put all this together, and I truthfully believe the Houston Rockets can make some real noise this year. The last one I want to talk about is the Denver Nuggets. The Denver Nuggets did what a lot of teams should do once they win a championship, but opt not to. Immediately after winning the NBA championship, the Denver Nuggets went to work. They made multiple trades to get multiple picks around the end of the first round, early second round, and were able to make 3 selections in this year's NBA draft. Now, this is extremely smart because now you get cost-controlled contracts as you're getting close to that dreaded second apron. With these picks, they took Julian Strawther, Jalen Pickett, and Hunter Tyson. All 3 of these guys are on the older side of the NBA draft. They're technically what I like to call veteran rookies, as they're going to come in and look to make an instant impact. You want to capitalize on this window that you have, so instead of drafting a rookie that you're going to have to build up to potentially see something in 3-4 years down the line, these guys can come in from day one and give you something. Now we got to switch the tempo up a bit, and we got to talk about the losers of this year's NBA draft. One of, if not the biggest loser of this year's NBA draft, was the Charlotte Hornets, man. I'm kind of skeptical on their draft. For me, Scoot Henderson was a can't-miss prospect. I feel like him and LaMelo Ball would have been extremely electric for the next decade. Another thing that kind of confused me is that Michael Jordan is looking to sell the team. Now, Michael Jordan will still have a presence on the team, but he'll be a minority owner. And as we've seen in years past, he ain't all too good in making draft decisions. Now, they took Brandon Miller, and this is no slouch to Brandon Miller. I feel like he's going to be fantastic. I mean, he's a 6'8" wing that can shoot lights out and has a great handle, but Scoot Henderson is just flat out better. And then on top of that, you take another guard at the end of the first round in Nick Smith Jr. Now, Nick Smith Jr. is a good prospect, but he has a lot of issues, and you already have a lot of guards with a lot of issues. There's Bryce McGowan, who's going to need minutes. James Bouknight is someone who you drafted really high 2 years ago, He's going to need minutes. On top of that, you already got LaMelo Ball, you got Terry Rozier, and potentially Dennis Smith Jr. And then if that isn't enough, in the second round, they took yet another guard in Amari Bailey. The roster has so many weird and questionable holes around it, and you really needed to draft for talent over fit early on. I don't know. I feel like the Brandon Miller one you're able to overcome, but the rest of the draft was just a big miss for the Charlotte Hornets. The biggest loser of this year's NBA draft is Damian Lillard. Now, the whole story, the whole shebang, everything that has gone on with Damian Lillard and the Portland Trail Blazers since season's end has been they're going to look to go all in. There have been multiple reports that the Portland Trail Blazers will do anything in hopes of getting Damian Lillard a championship in Portland. They were shopping that third overall pick, but let's be honest, they were never going to get a package that made sense. There wasn't a superstar player that was going to be available for trade that you could trade the third overall pick and other assets for and feel comfortable about. Anyway, it wouldn't have made any sense trading a third overall pick to get some help to capitalize on a 2 to 3 year window. That isn't really all that much of a window. I mean, there's so many teams in the Western and Eastern Conference that are much better than the Portland Trail Blazers. And now the inevitable is going to have to happen. Damian Lillard is going to have to request a trade as much as he doesn't want to and find a new team so he can go out and win a championship. Reports are saying that we're going to get an announcement on Damian Lillard's decision within the next week, so we'll see what he does. But for me, all signs are pointing to Dame time ending in Portland. But besides all of that, the NBA draft was great. A new generation of NBA talent is upon us, and I cannot wait to see what they do in the league.